Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
We need to roll back the state. We spy on all of our own citizens. Our prisons are flooded with nonviolent drug offenders. If you want to know who America's next enemy is, look at who we're funding right now. Every single one of these problems are a result of government being way too big.
You're listening to Part of the Problem on the Gas Digital Network. Here's your host, Dave Smith.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. That is my cozy, warm co-host, Robbie the Fire Bernstein. You look prepared.
Well, you know, you don't get the heat that you use back. It's a bad investment, people.
Is there no heat in your apartment? What's going on?
I mean, you can turn it on or you can bundle up.
Oh my God, that is the most. All right. We've been too critical of the Israeli government. I can't say it right now, but let's just say you're one of ours, Rob. All right. Very good. Well,
just put a sweatshirt on first. Keep it at 50, people. The winter saving tips from Robbie the Fire Bernstein.
There you go. All right. Well, me and Robbie the Fire Bernstein, we will be in full down coats in East Rutherford, New Year's Eve. Come celebrate New Year's with us. This is going to be a really fun one. Me, Robbie the Fire Bernstein, and Chris Vega, a live stand-up comedy show, then a live Part of the Problem, and then a meet and greet hang afterward. We'll watch the ball drop together. It'll all be a nice, fun time right here in East Rutherford, very close to New York City. If you're in the area, come out and spend New Year's with us. It's one ticket for the whole night, so you get a whole night of entertainment, a stand-up show, podcast, and a hangout session afterward. ComicDaveSmith.com. Ticket link is up there to go check it out. Anything else you want to plug before we get into it, Rob?
Popping bottles, baby. Looking forward to New Year's.
Hell yeah. And then we got a bunch of stuff coming up in the new year. All those ticket links should be up in the next week or so. So ComicDaveSmith.com and, of course, RobbieTheFire.com for Rob's solo gigs. All right. So there's a few things I want to get into. I want to start with this wonderful Vivek Ramaswamy moment that's been going around. I will say, however you feel about Vivek, and I would say probably me and you would have a few fairly important policy points that we disagree with him on, but a vast, array of policy points that we really agree with him on. But you just got to be thankful that this guy's running because he keeps creating these great moments. And it seems like with Donald Trump constantly being in court and not choosing not to do all these debates, that we wouldn't be getting these moments if Vivek wasn't in the race. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's tearing it up when they try and cut him off, but he's become world class at talking over people.
Yeah, he sure has. Anyway, so he did a CNN town hall yesterday, and this is the clip that's going the most viral out of all of it. Let's take a look and enjoy.
You said at the debate last week, you used the phrase inside job to describe what happened on January 6th. The next day, Capitol rioter Alan Hostetter highlighted your comments at his sentencing. He is going to prison for 11 years. Hostetter threatened members of Congress. He brought a hatchet, knives, pepper spray, stun batons, tactical gear to the U.S. Capitol. Are you concerned that a convicted felon like that is now promoting your comments in court?
So here's my concern, Abby, and I want to tell you guys where I'm at. If you had told me it's close to 3 years ago that January 6, 2021 happened, if you had told me 3 years ago, back when I was a biotech CEO, not steeped in this world, I was just consuming passive media, but was focused on my world of developing medicines. If you had told me that January 6 was in any way an inside job, the subject of government entrapment, I would have told you that was crazy talk. Fringe conspiracy theory nonsense. I can tell you now, having gone somewhat deep in this, it's not. I mean, the reality is this. We do have a government, first of all, we have to acknowledge that has lied to us systematically over the last several years about the origin of COVID-19, about the Hunter Biden laptop that we were told was false by 51 CIA experts and otherwise before we now know that it was true. You can go straight down the list, the Trump-Russia disinformation collusion hoax, all of it. Now we come to January 6th. The reality is we know that there were federal law enforcement agents in that field. We don't know how many. I think it's shameful. If I may finish just answering.
Well, let me
this is really important.
I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you here because
I know this,
that
the establishment doesn't approve of this message. I know
that there were federal
we should be able to talk about this.
You're saying that there were federal agents.
This is important to talk about.
You are saying there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
Yep.
There is no evidence that there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
So why, before Congress, when pressed on what the number was, they didn't say there were none? They just couldn't say how many there were.
So you're saying that that you have not seen any evidence
so
that
we've
there
seen
were,
multiple,
and so you
we've seen
assume that there
multiple
were.
informants suggesting that there were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked to
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this and you can come back and question me?
Let me clarify.
I know it's very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my question.
I know this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth here.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply. And I told you, I was with you 3 years ago. I'm not there now.
Where is the evidence?
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a
So let's
plot,
do this.
an inside job?
But no, I'm going to tell you what an inside job is, because I'm not
violence on January 6th.
I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I'm going to put my words in my mouth. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that.
Where is the evidence that the government was involved in planning or executing January 6th?
So I'm going to give you hard facts. And if I may, Abby, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're going to go through this, and you can push back on it after that. And you can push back on that. And let's do this fairly. Why did they suppress footage of now what's been released, 200 hours of footage of shooting rubber bullets into that crowd, shooting tear gas into that crowd? You didn't see that before. You saw what the response was to that. Now you see footage coming out of actually rolling out the red carpet for Capitol Police allowing people in,
again,
right through the front door.
The vast majority of the footage
evidence should have been released before, Abby.
Mr. Ramaswamy, the vast majority of the footage shows police officers being overrun
and I want to talk about one more
by
case.
violent
this is really important.
riders. That's
I'm going to give you some hard facts.
Of it shows.
So here's what entrapment
you can't
is.
Cherry pick.
I'm not cherry picking. If I may finish, Abby. If I may finish, Abby. I'm not cherry picking.
Examples.
To the contrary. To the contrary. You know who cherry picked examples? You know who cherry picked? The government.
That is what happened.
The government cherry picked 12 hours of footage when there was 200 hours of footage. So cherry picking was the government, not me. Release the whole thing. And let me just finish one thing too, because this is super important as a topic.
So
I think this is a significant issue of our time. Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping. I want to be really clear on this, because it's the same issue in the same FBI, same even part of the FBI. 3 people who were in an alleged plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer were acquitted at the end of trial because it was entrapment. That is, government agents put them up to do something they otherwise wouldn't have done. They gave them credit cards with spending limits of up to $5,000, encouraged them to buy munitions, plan something they weren't otherwise willing to plan. So much so, and I want people at home to know this, especially CNN viewers to know this, is that one of the jurors went to those defendants and apologized afterwards, gave him a hug, apologized, seeing what the government had put a poor guy up to, who had to go to some Mexican restaurant across the street to get hot water. These people were exploited with credit cards up to $5,000, FBI agents putting them up to a kidnapping plot that we were told was true but was entrapment. Same thing with the Capitol Police, people letting them in freely. Many of those people then being charged.
Look,
the government cannot put you up to do something and then charge you for it. That's wrong.
I don't want to have
to the left, to the right.
I don't want to have.
The thing that I find most interesting about this is that it's this woman versus Vivek and the audience. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's powering through her interruptions and the audience is so with him. And so just imagine being in this situation where you're like, you're the host, here's the candidate, and here's the audience who wants to hear what he has to say. And your job is to just what? I mean, she literally results to like a third grader going nana nana boo boo, like I'm just going to talk over you and not allow you to get this out. And she does this thing where she's slowly just repeating the same thing over and over again. It's clear it's just a tactic to break you up. It's really wild to see, because even like in our world of, let's say, the whatever this is, like mid-size podcast world, you know what I mean? Like we're not like one of the shows that don't have an audience. We're not like one of these like gigantic, huge shows, but we're like, like a mid-sized podcast. And you'll go on other podcasts sometimes, Rob, like you'll go on the podcast scene and they'll interview you or whatever. And if anyone ever did that to you, like in our world, like literally you were trying to talk and they just disagreed with you. So they just go, I'm going to slow down my tone and speak over you the whole time so that the audience can't hear you. I'm going to be like, but where's the evidence for that? But where's the evidence for that? But where's the, like, literally, this is what she's doing. Just saying the same sentence over and over so that you can't get your point across. I've never had an experience like that. And if I did, I would really be taken aback by being like, wow, that's so lame of you. Like, how childish is this? Like, if you want to argue with me about it, fine. But like, I get to say my thing and then you get to say your thing. But that's CNN. That's where CNN is at. She asked him the question. She tried to, and you could almost see it in her, where she asked the question, hey, you said January 6th was an inside job. How can you defend saying that? This guy is using your words in his court defense. How can you defend that? And he's like, okay, well, here's why. And starts going into it. And you could tell she's like, shit. He's got an answer for this. And he seems really confident about his answer. And that's it. She's like, I'm not going to allow it to be said clearly. It'll be said while I'm talking over him. And then that's just her decision for the rest of the segment. Keep interrupting, keep interjecting. It's remarkably infantile.
That's the censorship regime, is that, you can't let people even get this information because they might look into it and their minds might expand to what our government is capable of. The other times that I've seen this is at the end of Biden interviews when the press is there, and then someone in the room literally just, okay, that's it. Thanks for coming. Everybody out. That was so nice of you guys. Good to have you here. And just over talking any possibility of questions.
Yep.
In this format, it's remarkably uncomfortable. I don't know why they're both have seats there and they're just standing awkwardly.
That's a good point. Why do they do that? What is that in itself? I know that's not the most important thing here, but why the hell do they do this thing where you have to like stand uncomfortably and like be here and like it's just there's something so inorganic about like and by the way, I don't know, there's little details to this because like we do stand-up comedy, right? There's nothing like uncomfortable about standing up while everyone else is sitting down and you talk to them. But there's something really uncomfortable about two people standing up, having a conversation, but in front of this audience. And it's just very bizarre. Like have a seat and everybody could just be more comfortable.
Or at podiums, I guess. Podiums make sense, but
yeah,
whatever the hell this is, it's just weird.
Yeah, it's just so weird. But it's also, to your point, is so bizarre that when it's just a one-on-one conversation with an audience, that you would ever use this tactic of just trying to talk over the other person. It's very uncomfortable. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor, brand new sponsor we're very happy to have on board, and that is Ground News. Look, last week we talked about one of the most viral videos of the year, which was Elon Musk's response to his advertisers at the New York Times Summit. It, of course, was covered widely by media who had a lot to say about it. This is why I'm excited to tell you about Ground News. This app and website combines news articles from across the world and political spectrum so you can compare coverage. And they're sponsoring this episode. If you look up the story on Ground News, you'll see almost 200 articles were published on it, and coverage was pretty evenly split across the political spectrum. When I looked closer at the headline, I noticed some of the sources would emphasize his apology for his anti-Semitic tweet, while others just focused on his message to advertisers. What I find particularly useful is that next to each source, Ground News provides a rating of how factual the reporting is based on a combination of 3 independent news monitoring organizations and the ownership of the source. They even aggregate sources from Russian state-owned media, which is important, especially considering platforms remove these sources. It's really interesting to read the news this way, where knowing where the news is coming from can influence the way they spin the story. And this is really important for things like the Israel-Palestine war and the upcoming presidential elections. I think what Ground News is doing is really important. Check it out at ground.news/Dave Smith. This month, they're offering their biggest discount of the year, 40% off the Vantage subscription, which is what I have access to. I highly encourage you to check it out. Thank you to Ground News for supporting today's show. All right, let's get back into the show. Now, the other thing here that, of course, jumps out at you, and this is kind of really the most important part of all of it, is that it just kind of reveals the game. Why is it that she can't allow him to say what he wants to say? Well, like, because you just said, Rob, like, oh, people might hear an alternative view, you know? And like, look, I don't know. I will say, I do think Vivek slightly overstated his case. And I think if she was being honest, she could have maybe like taken him to task for that. Like he said, we know there were federal agents in that crowd. I don't know that we know that. We know that the Justice Department is unwilling to say there weren't any. That's... You know what I mean? Like that seems odd. We know the stuff about Ray Epps, you know, getting like a slap on the wrist when it seems like these other guys are getting 15-year sentences. Why wouldn't the guy who was actually inciting them to go in? You know, that seems strange. We know what he was talking about, that there were police who were opening the door and rolling out the red carpet for them to come on in, and then they turn around and get prosecuted for that. I think that's a very damning point for the federal government. But then he's making this case where he's like, well, look, they do these entrapment things all the time. Look at the Governor Whitmer thing. And by the way, there's 25 other examples he could have used. This is what the FBI does. They entrap people and then prosecute them, right? Or then the Justice Department recommends they're prosecuted. And so when he makes this case, what's the really compelling case that she doesn't want heard is like, well, look, they lied to you about all of this stuff. They constantly lie to you. They constantly do these entrapment things. And now we have January 6th, and yeah, it looks an awful lot like one, which I think that would be the more, like that would be a more precise way to make the argument. But why is it that she doesn't want this to get out? Because her mission is not to get his point of view out there and then maybe grill it and then maybe illuminate the issue. What is her goal here? It's to protect the FBI. That's what she's trying to do. She's trying to not let you think that maybe the FBI are the bad guys here. And that's the whole essence of the issue. That's the whole essence, is that's really the role of CNN. The role of CNN is to protect the powerful, not to, any of these like lofty democratic, claims of their goal is to illuminate the issues so you can make an informed decision when it's time to cast your ballot. It's nothing like that. It's just to make sure that this shit that's not allowed to be said doesn't be said. And the thing is that if she actually had pushback to give Vivek on any of his claims, she could have maybe made him look foolish. But she doesn't really have any. And so instead, she just made him look great, because what it just looks like to everyone. There's a reason why Vivek is sharing this clip and all his supporters are sharing it, because it just makes it look like, look, he's here trying to tell the truth, and she won't even allow him to say it because she knows she can't have her listeners hear this.
I think censorship in the name of truth gets exposed pretty quickly. Like if you're in the media, you're supposed to be sharing truth. And so when people are just sharing different opinions or asking questions and you instantly have to overtalk them, it's hard to pretend like you're interested in truth, because even truth allows for open-ended questions. This is almost as bad of a moment as when Dr. Gupta went on Rogan, where, it doesn't take too many clarifying questions for these people just to fold and for you to see that they have absolutely nothing, because they need full censorship or it doesn't work. So I'm going to guess that they're not going to invite Vivek on to CNN all that more often, because they're realizing that, I guess he's figured out the tools for not just stopping talking when they start yelling over and letting them recontrol the narrative, which forces them to play this exact game of just not letting you get a word in, and it doesn't look good.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, it's funny as you bring up Gupta, man. I mean, that was one of the moments of the whole pandemic. If there were like 15 or 20 moments, that would be one of them for me that I'd point to and be like, wow, it's really unbelievable how Rogan just asked him the simplest follow-up questions and he just collapsed into himself. And it's because he's been going on CNN every day selling this vaccine, and it's almost like an agreement there. No one will ask the obvious follow-up questions. And there were so many obvious ones. Like the one that Rogan hit him with was, he was like, oh, are you going to get the vaccine? And he was like, well, no, I just had COVID and beat it. So why would I get the vaccine? I have natural immunity. And Gupta's just like, wow, yeah, I mean, you got some natural immunity probably. Yeah, all right. Just had no answer. And no one's ever asked him that. It's like there were these obvious questions, like they'd be like, oh, you have to have a vaccine to go into restaurants and bars and shit like that. And like no one on CNN all day long, they'd spend 12 hours talking about it. And no one would ever just go, well, why do the vaccinated people need to be protected from the unvaccinated people? Aren't they protected by the vaccine? And you just know, I've done a million panels on CNN and Fox News and all this shit. You just know if someone was right in there asking that question, no one would have an answer to it. Because I asked this question on Fox News panels and no one ever had an answer to it. Because there is no answer to that. There is no answer. It's like this basic thing. If the vaccine is so good that we must mandate it, what are you telling me? It doesn't give the vaccinated protection? No one's got an answer for it because there is no answer. And likewise, it just makes the corporate press look so bad when you rattle off, it's like this thing where when you rattle off like weapons of mass destruction, Hunter Biden's laptop, lab leak origin, like all this different stuff like that, just like, okay, Russiagate, lie. Or even if you want to say not lying, the story that you guys all got wrong. You got it all wrong. And there were people lying. You know what I mean? Like, even if you were just an honest, useful idiot or something like that. But you rattle it all off and it just makes them look so bad. And then they have to sit there and take you saying all of that, have no response to any of that, but just go, yeah, but I think you're lying about this thing. But this thing is a conspiracy.
I know you're not, but what am I?
It's just like, it's unbelievable. And then those same people will say, well, there's a problem with like this misinformation out there. There's a problem with conspiracy theories out there. And they're so appalled by it. How dare you say January 6th was an inside job? And then, by the way, I'm not going to address any of what you just said about, Hunter Biden or any of that.
I think her boldest claim was because the overwhelming amount of footage was of people attacking cops. Yeah, the overwhelming amount of footage that we saw. That's a very unqualified statement. And then,
well, I also think there's like, what was the numbers? Do you remember like when they would say the amount of hours of footage that they released to Tucker Carlson?
I believe the number that comes to mind is 40,000 hours of footage.
Yes. So and this was the one that was released just to the Speaker of House or whether it was Tucker Carlson or whatever. But
it's supposed to be getting rolled out, but as far as I know, it hasn't happened.
It's interesting. But so when you have these ridiculous numbers, and when they say that, understand that because they're saying, from every different angle of the thing. So it's all these hours. So for her to just make the claim that the overwhelming majority of the film was violent, like, all right. Have you gone through all of this footage? There seems to be a lot. It's like you're just asserting something that seems highly unlikely. And it is, again, like this is a constant theme that comes up all the time, where the kind of progressive establishment types are always accusing you of doing what they're doing, which is a surprisingly effective technique because it weirdly puts you on the back foot. Well, now you first have to deny that you're not doing that and then be like, wait, wait a minute, you're doing that. It's like a really weird thing. Like it's not, there's a difference. Like if someone punched you in the face and you go, yo, you just punched me in the face. And they go, no, I didn't. That's like one type of lie. But if someone punched you in the face and you go, yo, you just punched me in the face. And they go, you just punched me in the face. It's very like disorienting in a way. You know what I mean? Like you're like, wait, what? I punched you in what are you talking? Like you're sitting there with a sore chin and like your hands in your pockets and you're like, well, I didn't punch you in the face. But that when she goes, oh, you're cherry picking. Like, but we're just asking to see all of the footage. We're cherry picking. You guys are the ones who cherry picked. You had all of the footage and shows that we would all see on loop all of the violent footage. There's no violent footage that's come out since all of this that's like, oh, I hadn't seen that. Those were all the images I saw the day of, and at least in the following weeks and the following months. But the footage that's come out that I hadn't seen originally was all the peaceful footage. But then they accuse you of cherry picking if you bring up any of the peaceful footage or any of the footage where guys who ended up getting convicted, going to jail, are having the Capitol Police guide them around and help open doors for them and shit. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is sheathunderwear.com, the underwear of legends. I've told you about these guys for years, but it really is just the best pair of boxer briefs you will ever own. The only pair of underwear I ever wear is Sheath underwear. And here's something pretty wild. It's been over 3 years now that they've been advertising on this show, and I still have the original pairs of underwear that they sent me, and they feel exactly like they did the first week I put them on. These things are high quality. They last. Go get yourself one pair. That's my challenge to you. Go get one pair of Sheath underwear. You're going to become a loyal wearer of them because they're the best pair of boxer briefs you'll ever put on. Plus, they have hoodies and gator necks and all types of other stuff for the winter. It's all really quality stuff, and the company is run by really great guys who are big supporters of what we do. So make sure you go support them as well by going to sheathunderwear.com and use the promo code problem20. That'll get you 20% off your next order. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code problem20 for 20% off your next order. All right, let's get back on the show.
There's something, I can't quite put my finger on it, but the question of, have you seen any evidence of it? It's, if a cop comes to my car and says, hey, I want to search your car, and I say no, that's not proof of the fact that there's something that I'm hiding in my car.
Sure. I'm
exerting my right, and I have no reason to make it easier for a cop to try and find a reason for me to be in trouble. When it comes to this one, it's kind of the wrong question because, yes, I guess there's no direct evidence, but there's some very strong questions as to why they can't release all the footage, or why can't they answer a question as to whether or not there were agent provocateurs that day. Why was there scaffolding there? Why was there no military support brought in? Why was the head of security? Wasn't there some article? Oh, yeah, that was the interview that Tucker couldn't air while he was on Fox. And then he did a new interview with like the old head of security who was talking about all
the head of the Capitol Police. Yeah.
Yeah. The failures that day. And that he had escalated the need for, I think, more support. I don't remember it that clearly, but it's in a way, it's a misleading question. Cause I guess the answer is, well, they haven't given us they're not providing the information for there to be evidence, but I'm suggesting that they are conducting a cover up.
Well, look, Rob, I mean, throughout the last 20 something years, since the rise of the war on terrorism and the security state, and, every last violation of everybody's privacy rights, what the feds have said to us over and over again is, if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide. That's been their
But I guess
mantra.
In this case, they've got a record of lying. And so it's like, why can't I have my search warrant? This guy's a known drug criminal. So there's actually a good reason to search his car. I guess that's kind of
everything is flipped on its head here, right? Because everything's upside down. If you're claiming to live in a free society, then individuals have privacy rights. But government doesn't have privacy. That's government hiding things is secrecy. Free people hiding things is privacy, and it's totally different. And so the feds will look at us and make a mockery of privacy and go, if you've done nothing wrong, you should have nothing to hide. Yet what would be so much more reasonable would be for the American people to look at the feds and go, hey, if you've done nothing wrong, you got nothing to hide. You don't get to hide shit from us. Like you're supposed to be serving us, right? Isn't that hypothetically what this whole thing's supposed to be?
So you're almost saying government withholding evidence would be indicative of guilt.
Yes. I think it's not the same as individuals. I think that look, there's Tucker Carlson was talking about this the other night on a Twitter Spaces that he did. It was really great. But he was saying, look, there's over 1 billion classified documents. It's over 1 billion. And nobody in Washington, D.C. can argue to you with a straight face that that's because those all really need to be classified. This is ridiculous. It's all just like protecting themselves. That's all of this stuff. How can they justify that the Kennedy documents are still secret? Like what? Is there something that could give an advantage to the Soviet Union in there? Are there any of the conflicts that we had in the year 1963 still relevant at all today? The Soviet Union's gone. Fidel Castro's dead, right? There's nothing that they could even pretend is there, but they still just won't let us know what happened. So yeah, is that evidence of guilt? I kind of think so. Yeah. Either way. Okay, so I mentioned Hunter, and Vivek mentioned Hunter Biden there. So that's the next thing we got to address is there's been a Hunter sighting, and it comes in an interesting time. So basically right around the same time, the House officially voted to open an impeachment inquiry. For people who don't know, this is the first step in impeaching a president. The House opened an impeachment inquiry. They subpoenaed Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden gave a speech. This is not something we've seen a lot of. There's been a lot of talk of Hunter Biden over the last 3 years or so, a little bit more than 3 years. But
a lot of brilliant artists are recluses, though, and
that
when
is
you're making
true.
millions of dollars on your painting, sometimes you just want to focus on what you love and embrace your personal process.
It's hard for the non-artistic types, such as ourselves, to understand the great artists when it comes to a Hunter or an Adolf. And these are the people who have to they have got to live in their art.
Especially when you're struggling with addiction and recovery, and you don't want to be in the public eye and addressing such scrutiny as, the stressful relationship you might have had to make doing payouts to your father.
I'm trying to take my emotions and put them on the canvas. In this case, it's blowing $1.7 million on hookers. That's the emotion I'm feeling. You ever spent 1.7 on hookers? No. Okay. So you don't know what it's like. And let me put
now
that
that
on
you say it, his art does kind of look like splatter art.
Listen, I got to put this emotion on the canvas, and then I have a wealthy Democratic donor who's very interested in buying it from me. I need more hookers and crack. Okay. Anyway, Hunter Biden has been the center, obviously, of a lot of controversy over the last few years. He has not spoken that much. He gave that one interview, which was kind of damning. But there hasn't been that much of him aside from that. So this was a little press conference that Hunter Biden gave. It's pretty remarkable. Let's listen to it.
Biden's having a press conference.
Any legitimate questions Chairman Comer and the House Oversight Committee may have for me. I'm here today to make sure that the House Committee's illegitimate investigations of my family do not proceed on distortions, manipulated evidence, and lies. And I'm here today to acknowledge that I've made mistakes in my life and wasted opportunities and privileges I was afforded. For that, I'm responsible.
Can you just pause it already for a second?
I'm accountable.
It's just so great that what he says about after attacking the Republicans, he goes, and look, I've made mistakes. I've wasted opportunities and privileges. And you're like, wait, you think that's your mistake? That you've wasted opportunities? I thought the mistake was that you took advantage in a totally corrupt way of your opportunities and your privileges. You're telling me Hunter might be sitting here saying, I could have made more. There were other offers on the table. There were other hookers I didn't bang, blow I didn't snort. Think about all that.
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that, how great of a twist it is for him to say that you did the best job of taking advantage of your privilege and opportunities. You managed to make millions of dollars while partying and doing crack. So no one's ever taken more advantage.
You're the Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time. You were a crackhead who was raking in millions of dollars. Talking about taking advantage of your opportunities and privileges.
Or there are elites out there doing things way worse that we don't know about that someone else did. Yeah, you don't even know what the Bush's daughters are up to.
You seen those Obama girls? You know how much they write off on their taxes? All right, let's keep. I did
have two other. One is I got to do some crack because I want that Steve-O raspy voice. It's got a good sound.
It would be handsome on you.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. You got to do a little bit of crack, not too much crack, Rob.
Well, the other thing that's nice about doing drugs is you always have the plausible deniability of that you don't remember and that you made mistakes in the past and that this is getting in the way of your healing process.
You're like, excuse me, I have a disease. So if you can't, please be respectful.
If you can respect my healing, that was the old me and I'm involved in healing. And this really gets in the way of my healing here.
All right, let's keep playing.
Responsible. For that, I'm accountable. And for that, I'm making amends. But I'm also here today to correct how the MAGA right has portrayed me for their political purposes. I am first and foremost a son, a father, a brother, and a husband from a loving and supportive family.
Can you pause again? And husband to others and wives to
because I'm also, I mean, if you want to get technical, I'm a brother-in-law / husband. I'm also, that's my daughter niece over there. And
I'm a dad and a dad again, and then a dad to another one that I don't talk to, but I was forced to make payments from. And then there's some other kids.
I'm a son, I'm a dad, I'm a brother, I'm a dad kind of, I'm a brother / husband. There's a lot of some weird stuff going on, but I got it. Sorry, guys. This is gonna be about 12 minutes of titles that I got to put you through here. All right, let's keep
Proud to have earned degrees from Georgetown University and Yale Law School. I'm proud of my legal career.
Universities my dad spent a lot of money to get me into.
I'm proud of my time serving on a dozen different boards of directors. And I'm
can't
proud
brag
of my
about
efforts
that.
to forge global business relationships. For 6 years, MAGA Republicans, including members of House committees who are in a closed-door session right now, have impugned my character, invaded my privacy, attacked my wife, my children, my family, and my friends. They've ridiculed my struggle with addiction. They've belittled my recovery. And they have tried to dehumanize me, all to embarrass and damage my father.
All right, let's pause it right here. So isn't this, I mean, Rob, as our people would say, the chutzpah is just unbelievable. So this is your whole way. After one little throwaway line about also, I did some things wrong. I could have taken advantage of my opportunities better. But then he brags about his resume that he's so proud of. Like, hey, I got into Ivy League schools. Yeah, we all know that a senator's kid getting into Ivy League schools suggests nothing but meritocracy, right? So, like, yeah, you're bragging. He brags about the boards of directors that he's on. Now, again, if you guys want to go through this, they're all clearly because he's a senator, then vice president's son. That's why he's on these boards. So it's just like so. And then to just go off on what a victim he is, I've been the victim of these horrible attacks. I'm clearly a victim. The son of a senator, vice president, obviously one of the least privileged members of society. I made millions of dollars trading in my father's last name. But I'm even more of a victim than that because I also blew all of the money on drugs and hookers. So that's like that just shows you what a disease I have. I'm in recovery here, sir. So you have no idea what it's like for me to be attacked for my blatant corruption. Try to put yourself in that situation, okay? It's very hard. You're basically you're basically like a kid trapped in a war zone. Basically the same thing.
I respect the balls on this guy to not show up to a congressional hearing and instead be like, just set up a podium outside and then set up the podium and go, how dare they look into me while I'm healing and recovering? And my God, I'm a respected board member of these companies. You know what gives you this kind of balls? Crack.
This is just a commercial for crack.
Yeah, this is literally like, you want to know how to have balls in your life. It's having that energy of I run companies.
Yeah, Jesus. All right, here, let's keep playing because it just gets better and better.
Who has devoted his entire public life to service. For 6 years, I have been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here.
Just pause it. Pause it. Like even the way because for 6 years Donald Trump's been saying, "Where's Hunter?" Well, guess what, Donald Trump? 6 years later, I'm right here. As soon as they opened an impeachment inquiry into my father, I'm right here, and I've been here the whole time. Like, all right, dude, it's a long 6 years to wait before answering that question. How is that supposed to sound like? In your face. Like,
also, I'm right here outside the congressional hearing I'm refusing to sit down for to showcase my willingness to with open honesty to showcase, me as a businessman.
You can't imagine that this was like written down and anyone like there wasn't some lawyer or someone, an advisor who was like, seriously? You're gonna go out? You can do this with a straight face? All right. If you think you can deliver it with a straight face, go ahead. All right, let's keep playing.
Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad, and certainly not as an artist.
All right, let's
During my
pause it
battle
right
with
there.
addiction,
It's just great that it's unbelievable that he's forced, even in this self-righteous little speech, to run off the greatest hits. It doesn't matter what you put around it. It's just so obvious what that sounds like once you start saying it. He wasn't involved in this Ukrainian energy company that I happen to be raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from, the place where we're fighting a war in right now. Yeah, I was involved. I had serious financial interest there in the years leading up to the war. The Chinese government that I was making tons of money off, he wasn't involved in that. And the fact that I just started painting and then Democratic donors wanted to buy my paintings for obscene amounts of money. My dad wasn't a part of that. Like, okay. Still sounds like you're corrupt as shit, but all right. Let's keep playing.
And people
Sorry,
also, they picked up on the new qualifier of not financially involved. So what does that mean? He didn't have a direct financial interest, but you're making payments after the fact? Or what? So then what was his level of involvement? So he's part of showcasing the brand, I think it was, as Devin Archer said, and then getting payouts later. Right. Like, you're already introducing a very significant kicker as to, well, how are you defining financial involvement? And that's separate from what Biden had initially said, which was, I have no knowledge, or whatever his.
No, it was, I have no knowledge of any of my son's business dealings.
Right.
So that's a good point. That's a different claim. All right, let's keep playing.
my parents were there for me. They literally saved my life. They helped me in ways that I will never be able to repay. And of course, they would never expect me to. And in the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances. But to suggest that is grounds for an impeachment inquiry is beyond the absurd. It's shameless. There is no evidence to support the allegations that my father was financially involved in my business because it did not happen. James Comer, Jim Jordan, Jason Smith, and their colleagues have distorted the facts by cherry-picking lines from a bank statement, manipulating texts I sent, editing the testimony of my friends and former business partners.
You just pause again, I'm sorry.
And misstating.
I just love the way he goes, from a bank statement? Like, you can't get information from a bank statement. It's like he's talking about like they got the information from a Snickers wrapper. The fact that they cherry-pick some information off a bank statement, the place where a single line could actually tell you quite a bit.
And he's been charged. Like, it's as if this is just all like, so utterly ridiculous. Not only has he been charged, but just to be clear from what we know of this, there's been several whistleblowers who said that they were told while they were at the IRS to like ignore all this stuff, or they weren't given stuff that they wanted from the feds. Then he's charged, and a lawyer reaches a sweetheart plea deal with him. It was so ridiculous that the judge rejected it. I was like, no, guys, this is like crazy. We can't just let him off for all of this. And now he's being charged. All right, guys, let me take a moment to introduce you to our newest sponsor, which is John Kander. John Kander provides premium leather goods you will be proud to own. John Kander sent me their Leon Duffel, and it's my new travel bag. They also sent me an amazing wallet. The carry-on size Leon Duffel is more functional than a traditional weekender, more versatile than the wheeled carry-on, meticulously engineered as a great blend of both. The carry-on size Leon Duffel has a timeless, clean, minimalist design and is pragmatic in its features, designed by travelers for travelers. The carry-on size Leon Duffel is handcrafted out of their supple, scratch-resistant, and durable full-grain leather with the perfect blend of style and high functionality. The wallet is the one your friend will keep asking you about. Buttery smooth, scratch-resistant, full-grain leather wallets, more than a minimalist wallet and less than a traditional fat bifold. Hold more without the bulk. John Kander is a veteran-owned business that focuses on timeless styles, skilled craftsmanship, and uncompromising attention to detail. They strive to make the finest leather goods and have customers for life. They don't make decisions based on what's easiest or cutting corners. Order the new travel bag today and take 15% off with code DaveSmith at johnkander.com/discount/DaveSmith. And remember to use that code DaveSmith for 15% 15% off. One more time, that's johncandor.com/discount/Dave Smith, and use the promo code Dave Smith for 15% off. All right, let's get back into the show. Anyway, let's keep playing.
And misstating personal information that was stolen from me. There is no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing.
All right, let's pause it here, because I think there was a pretty stunning admission in there, which was I believe the first time it's actually been admitted that was his laptop. Right? He said they're manipulating personal information that was stolen from me. What else is he referring to? Now, I'll give a couple caveats to this. Number one, the laptop was not stolen from him. So I don't know what else he could be referring to. But his laptop wasn't stolen. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He was on a lot of crack in those days. But Hunter Biden left his laptop at a laptop repair shop and didn't come to pick it up. And you sign an agreement when you're there that you forfeit it after a certain amount of time. So it was forfeited. It wasn't his anymore. Nothing was ever stolen from him. However, it's a pretty big deal if he's acknowledging that laptop was in fact his. I mean, obviously we all know this, but I have been told, Rob, that it had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. So now you have this guy, when people were asking, where's Hunter? Well, 6 years later, I guess he's popping up to let us know what we may have wanted to ask him in 2020 in October, and say, hey, is this your laptop? He didn't want to pop up to say anything about that then, but I guess now he's willing to acknowledge it. So, but again, it's not, oh, hey, I was unwilling to say anything when the entire story was told wrong. All of these feds and spies totally lied to you and said they thought that this was Russian misinformation. For another year after that, they tried to keep this lie going. But now I'm coming to you and letting you know, yeah, guys, it was me. I lied. I fucked up. Instead, he's going, they manipulated information they stole from me, which isn't even true. It wasn't stolen from him. But you just look, the level of privilege to sit here and complain. It'd be one thing if he was coming out and going like, I'm a bad guy, I'm corrupt, but I should suffer for that, not my father, or something like that. You know what I mean? But he's literally sitting there and going like, oh, how dare you all be looking into my things like this? Pretty outrageous. Now let's play a couple more minutes and then we'll move on.
They have lied over and over about every aspect of my personal and professional life. So much so that their lies have become the false facts believed by too many people. No matter how many times it is debunked, they continue to insist that my father's support of Ukraine against Russia is the result of a non-existent bribe. They displayed naked photos of me during an oversight hearing. And they have taken the light of my dad's love, for me, and presented it as darkness. They have no shame. These same committee chairmen have engaged in unprecedented political interference in what would have already been a 5-year investigation of me. Yet, here I am, Mr. Chairman, taking up your offer when you said we can bring these people in for depositions or committee hearings, whichever they choose. Well, I've chosen. I am here to testify at a public hearing today to answer any of the committee's legitimate questions. Republicans do not want an open process where Americans can see their tactics, expose their baseless inquiry, or hear what I have to say. What are they afraid of? I'm here. I'm ready.
Hunter, are you ready to go across?
Okay. So just to be clear, if you See what he did at the end. Hunter might have being a politician in his future. He might be cut out for this.
He lies like his pops. The light and the darkness themes and the I'm right here, Buster. It's very his dad.
It's very like Biden, yes, but without the dementia. So keep your eye on this kid. He could be going places. He's got the corruption down. So they asked him to testify, or they subpoenaed him to testify privately and publicly. And the private testimonies are usually much longer and much more in depth. And it's much more of a situation where, like, it's not just members of Congress, but there's also like law enforcement there and stuff like that. And you're under oath. And so they keep you there for like 9-12 hours asking you questions. He spins it as going, I'm willing to do this, but we're going to do this out in the open. I'll do the public one, but not this private, more in-depth one. So that's basically what he's saying he's agreed to and what he won't do. The truth is, I don't think he really has the option to not do either, to not do both, to not do whatever he's subpoenaed for. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But yeah, so that was Hunter Biden emerging from the shadows to blame all of the Republicans for looking into his blatant corruption. And by the way, just to be clear about this, when he says there's no evidence that my dad was involved at all, that is just not true. That is just not true. It was when I was on with those, I can't remember their names. I was on with those Twitter brothers who are like progressives. Me and Clint did like a Twitter Spaces with them on Josie's thing. But I remember one of them said to me, he said that, he goes, there's no evidence that Joe Biden was involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings at all. And I was like, well, that's just not true. I mean, I know that's the line that gets repeated, but there is evidence. And I said, there's Bobulinski, who literally said that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, he was with all of them. They all discussed the business together, and that Joe Biden was getting a cut. This was Hunter Biden's business partner, whose testimony was that Joe Biden was involved and he was getting a cut. And he went to me, yeah, but that's just hearsay. And I was like, wait, no, it's not. That's not what hearsay is. That's what's known as eyewitness testimony. He's not claiming he heard someone else say that they saw Joe Biden there. He's saying he's testifying that he saw Joe Biden, that he was in on this, and that he was getting a cut, that he was the big guy they were referring to. So it's just not true that there's no evidence of that. But look, even if you want to claim that Bobulinski's lying, whatever else, him jumping on the phone was just to say hi to everybody, but whatever. Let's say that that's the truth. Still, no one can really deny how corrupt Hunter Biden is and what he was involved in here. Nobody can look you in the eyes and tell you that they actually think that a Ukrainian energy company just thought that somebody who didn't speak Ukrainian and had no industry experience in the energy sector needed to be on their board and collect a giant check. That they thought that no one can tell you that that was anything other than trading in his father's name. Now, you could make the argument that Joe Biden wasn't involved and that they may have thought they were buying favor with the Biden administration, but they weren't getting any, or at the time, the Obama administration. That's also, by the way, if you look at Burisma, Hunter Biden's salary got cut in half as soon as Donald Trump came in, because it seems like he wasn't quite as valuable to them at that point. Regardless, this is why the Chinese were working with him. This is why Democratic donors buy his art. It's not because it's just so great. It's clearly corrupt. So at the very least, if no one can really mount a defense against why Hunter Biden isn't a corrupt guy himself, forget whether Joe Biden was involved. Forget whether this is reasonable to launch an impeachment inquiry. How the hell does that guy get to stand up and lecture everybody else when we all know he's guilty as sin? Isn't that just insane? I'll tell you though, it's hard for it to not make you kind of root for Hunter Biden in a way. Like, you're just like, God damn, dude, really? I mean, look, I don't know. We've talked about this before. There were a lot of accusations of like him doing pedo stuff. I'm not going to look through files looking for those images because I don't want to see them and I don't want that in my web search history. But that aside, if that's not true, you just got to kind of admire Hunter Biden. I mean, what is this dude? It's just this crackhead spending $1.7 million. By the way, this is so the $1.7 million. Did you see that, the aspect of that? I've referred to this a few times. So, and this is something that they'll have to look in, but evidently Hunter Biden had $1.7 million in cash withdrawals. So like ATM withdrawals or whatever, or going up to a bank teller of up to $1.7 million. And the response basically has been like, yeah, that's when he was doing drugs and all this stuff. And you're like, yeah, but $1.7 million is a lot of money to spend. And then it does make you wonder, like, where did all this cash go? Who knows who he was paying off or who he was giving it to? Anyway, that's where we are with Hunter. The impeachment inquiry is going forward. And if nothing else, this is going to be quite a show. I guess the final thing to say before we wrap up is that, look, obviously we have speculated, and pretty much everybody in the world of political commentators has speculated about whether or not Joe Biden is going to be the nominee, even though he says he definitely will be. I will say we're getting pretty late in the game, but if they were going to make a move, it does seem like they're laying the groundwork for it here, where, you know, charges are brought against Hunter Biden, impeachment pressure is put on Biden. Perhaps Biden, it goes his final moment in office is pardoning his son and then announcing that he won't be seeking re-election. We'll see, but it does seem like there's a path now for that to happen, whereas there wasn't as clear of a path before. All right, we're going to wrap on that note. We'll catch you guys next time for a brand new episode. Thanks for listening. Peace.